Distinguished colleagues, good morning. Let's respect our timing. Some other people will be joining us shortly, those who are still finishing their coffees. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of Com News at the third Telecom Eurasia Forum. This conference this year will be dedicated to the topics of innovation, interaction, and convergence of mobile communications, optical networks, and satellite networks for the digital economy. My name is Leonid Konik. I'll be moderating our today's plenary session. Before I tell you a couple of words how this is going to be designed, I'd like to thank the partners for today's event, without whom this event wouldn't be possible. Third International Conference Telecom Eurasia is happening with the support of the regional community for support of telecoms. Our official partner is Freedom Telecom. Strategic partner of the conference is Rayton CC. Our main information partner, Kazakhstan Associations of the comms operators. The conference is happening with the help of Naomi Company. Our plenary session that will continue for 2 hours and 15 minutes is structured as a series of presentations, and according to the logic of the presentations, you'll realize why we designed it like that. Let me simply tell you that in the opening part, Com News of the past almost 27 years of our history, we've been doing lots and lots of activities related to the telecoms market, but before the Telecom Eurasia, we were structuring the presentations vertically, what is called the silo approach. We had separate conference for wireless communications, mobile communications, separate activities for satellite comms, separate events for the main lines and highways and wholesale traffic sales. And at Eurasia Telecom, we realized that the word of convergence that has been around for almost 20 years now, it's only become relevant over the past 3 to 4 years. The mutual penetration of technologies, mobile technologies, satellite technologies, mutual penetration of these technologies, wireless technologies, is as great as ever. So the event about the telecom in general consists of mobile, satellite, highways, is of the major importance, and the topic of these markets are subject to some heavy regulations, both internationally, nationally, and we see, like in the past few years, national regulation comes into place, and the international regulation isn't really catching up with the main development trends in these markets. Simply because the convergence happens, mutual penetration of technologies is happening, and both at the regulation level, domestically and internationally, we'll be speaking about this a lot. Without taking any more of your time, I would like to pass the floor for the welcoming remark to the Director General of the Regional Telecom Association, Alexei Baradin. Alexei is online with us using the digital communication channels, the Regional Commonwealth
Leonid,
Communication.
доброе утро.
Leonid, good morning.
Я хотел бы поприветствовать всех
I
коллег.
would like to welcome all of our distinguished colleagues, distinguished delegates. Because of the broadcast, I can see lots of familiar faces in this room, and we've been in touch with many of you. I'm passing you some of my best regards. This is great honor and great pleasure to participate in the opening of today's event. Like you said, Com News has been doing the whole series of conferences, and I'd like to develop this topic somehow. This conference is some sort of a benchmark indication. It shows the results of the discussions, Satellite Russia, Transnet, and some other conferences that happened in the first half of this year. And we took the active part in the work of these conferences. And speaking about RSS, this enabled us to prepare a well-developed position of our region, of our companies, international companies that operate in our region, including regulators, prepared them for our main meeting, the meeting of the digital ministers or heads of the telecoms that happened recently in the city of Tashkent. And this was on the whole range of the important issues, specifically the development of the systems of satellite communication on non-geostationary orbits. This covered the issues of what kind of regulation is required. Very often in the public area, public domain, they discuss the issues of security, but here there are lots of interesting things apart from security. What services should be provided? What should be quality of these services? What should be the niche of these systems? Because we perfectly understand that these are niche-based solutions, and we discussed the faith in the future of the regional projects. Also discussed the issues of the development of the digital highways and wholesale traffic approaches. Basically, this helps facilitate inter-operators discussions, commercial meetings that also happening in this region, the problems of providing services via roaming. It seems to be an old and forgotten topic, but we're moving into a new plane here, digital plane. We can see that the services, it must not be just voice and data, the mutual acknowledgement of documents when traveling. These are the issues of the implementation and mutual recognition of digital signatures, so the whole range of issues. And I'm pleased to see that this conference, the third conference, already it is gaining some specific pace. I think it has already become a reputable platform where the professionals of top level meet and discuss things. So I'd like to wish this third conference. Well, I'd like to wish it not to remain static. I'd like to wish it to try to face some challenges, maybe develop some new approaches we could all use for the future regional regulation as we are preparing for the international communication radio comms, which is going to be happening in a few years' time. So I'd like to pass some of the best regards to my colleagues in the room. I'd like to wish you very productive work, and I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to speak up as the introduction to this big forum. Thank you. Thank you, Alexei. We're getting some applause in the room for you. Hopefully at the next event we will be able to see you in face and physically present here. I'd now like to give the floor to our next speaker, to do it with great pleasure, Natalia Mocheva, Regional Director for the region of the CIS, International Union of Electric Communications. Natalia will tell us about the development, digital technologies development in the CIS region and the challenges they are facing. Leonid, thank you very much. Hello, distinguished colleagues. There is a PowerPoint presentation by ITU. With great pleasure, I participate in today's conference for the first time personally. And by means of my presentation, I would like to offer you some brief information and data that is available to the ITU about the state of the digital development and development trends in the CIS region, challenges and possibilities we are seeing based on the most recent survey that was conducted for the region, for the CIS region, Commonwealth of Independent States. This particular publication was prepared for the CIS region as part of the country's preparation for the World ITU Conference. Alexei Borodin, in his welcome, mentioned this conference that is the main event that is conducted by the ITU this year. Hopefully you know or heard about this conference where we have the member countries participating mostly, some academic members, the sector representatives, telecom operators, equipment vendors, internet companies, and so on. This is the conference that defines the direction for the development that is going to be implemented by ITU in various regions for the coming 4 years. So please pay more attention to this conference. So in this report, you can learn about the regional data, the CS data in some detail. I'm gonna, in a more precise format, I can tell you more, and should you be interested, we can have an individual discussion of this. The ITU member countries right now being guided by this notion as universal and meaningful digital connection. Universal meaningful connection. We as professionals being guided by UMC, and this is the approach that is being promoted by the ITU, the possibilities of the network users, rights and possibilities of network users to be able to enjoy quality services. So this term in the USC, this term UMC, Universal Meaningful Connection, which is connected to the sustainable development concept, and basically defines the safe, useful, and productive online connection, not just simply having this connection. And moving towards the digital developments dynamics in the CS region through the prism of UMC, or this specific approach based on the statistical data we are gathering on the annual basis. We collect this data annually. The CS region demonstrates some substantial digital progress. The use of the internet reached 92% in the region, and is one of the highest amongst all of the ITU regions. There are 6 regions. The gender parity has been achieved. Equal numbers of men and women use the internet. There is no major differences like in the other regions. Also, would like to know the mobile broadband internet, which is the most popular way of accessing the internet, is quite developed and universally available in the region. So digital access, I will speak about this more at the end of this presentation. Fiber optic infrastructure is more or less available. According to the data we have, 93% of the country's population reside within 100% from the comms hubs. In the achievements in the infrastructure basically provide the good foundation for the digital transformation in the whole region. Well, of course, there are certain differences, certain digital gaps in the digital development of countries of the CIS region. Our region consists of 9 countries, and in some countries we can see substantially less developed digital infrastructure. Speaking about the communities, specifically rural communities, remote communities, about 7% of the rural population still have no access to the internet. Launching 5G networks is going slowly. The fixed broadband access remains undeveloped in some of the countries. We can see the dominance of the mobile networks, which shows some sort of a misbalance in various ICT development indicators, which summarize or aggregate data for both fixed and mobile broadband. Better mobile access and limited fixed broadband access shows in unequal development. And basically, many of these countries are landlocked, which basically complicates the development of the comms network. The digital policy and regulation, there is some sort of an established level. I see ITU is using the ICT regulatory tracker. There are 5 levels of the regulatory development in this region. Mostly this is level G2, G3. In Uzbekistan last year got upgraded to G3. Learning more about the regulatory trackers, you can do this at OSEPT, and only one country is at G4 level, which means there is some independent regulation. Ministry comes separately, telecoms regulators come separately. There is only one country, Armenia, has this kind of advanced regulation. Of course, there is a lot of potential for the development of regulation in order to be able to support the digital development in the country's regions. And the part of the other aspects of the development, such as structural elements and related to these issues, well, in this region, ITU is looking at the security development. This region gained 60 points out of 100 in terms of cybersecurity. This is slightly higher than the international average, 66 points out of 100. And the cybersecurity situation differs in very different countries, with a gap of 70 points between the best and the worst, or most advanced and least advanced. So there is a big gap, almost zero cybersecurity that is out there, and approaching 100%, 100 points in some countries. Only 3 countries, there are rules for treating electronic waste based on the processing of electronics waste in our region. Again, according to the data that ITU is getting, only 6.5% of waste is being recycled, with compared to 22% globally. And also we can see the lack of data that relates to digital skills. Maybe this digital skills data is collected at the country level, but only 3 of the CIS countries actually report this data. And this also complicates the work of the countries in terms of defining the policy, in terms of the ICT skills, which basically related to the tasks that these countries are trying to strive for, to improve digital skills in the use of digital services and eGov services in the region of the CIS. A part of the future steps in the CIS region, some of the conclusions that are being made in the study would need to continue to develop infrastructure and reduce the digital gaps. We're talking about the remote regions, given I think you know about these issues, and if you do this, there is some regulation of ICT and digital government, and we are implementing large-scale global projects related to digitalization of electronic governments. You can see that we need to improve the statistical potential to eliminate any digital gaps. So basically, to make the right conclusions out of this, and for the countries how to be guided based on the level of its development.
And of course, it is very necessary to continue our coordination in the development of cyber security and this kind of platform. We are also providing a possibility through conducting various workshops and conferences. And of course, there are some risks associated with it, and we have to be aware of them. In particular, what I mean is not very well streamlined regulatory policies and maybe insufficient potential or capacity in various regions, because in some regions or countries, unfortunately, the government is blocking the development of digital solutions, and we also see that there are some gaps in cybersecurity in some countries, and a big gap among various countries of our region. And again, I would like to reiterate that in some countries there is a lack of digital skills, especially among the population in remote areas and agri-farming regions. Therefore, such are the risks and challenges. All countries of our region, to a certain extent, emphasize such peculiarity, which influence on the decision-taking, dealing with international and regional development among all. And again, getting back to the issue of price availability and accessibility, according to the last report that was published in May, and the price accessibility of ICT services, and you know that there is a global stance according to which that these prices should be lower than 2% of GDP, per capita GDP. And in our region, in principle, this particular parameter is compliant according to 4 types of service baskets, which you see here on this slide. And with regard to the broadband communication, there was a hike in 2023, and it remained stable in 2024. And yet it is still a little bit higher, and therefore some regulators are wondering if it will be possible to reduce the prices. But on the other hand, some regulators are asking us about very low prices, which disable full-scale investment by the telecoms operators into the development of their infrastructure. And therefore, they are wondering what kind of pricing should be secured to enable such reinvestment in the infrastructure development. And now getting to the end of my presentation, when we talk about various development difficulties, challenges, and risks, of course, all of these aspects are very well analyzed by member countries, and especially on the eve of large conferences, during which we usually take strategic decision and determine the development and the work of the union, telecommunications union. Such conference is going to be conducted in November in Baku this year, and this is one of the 4 conferences, regular conferences of International Electrocommunication Union. And we also define some priorities, regional initiatives, as we call them, which, as you see here, are dealing with all the issues that I tackled on before. This is the introduction of new systems and networks of electric communications, and it is education and development of the skills for among various users, including disabled people. This is security and cybersecurity, and of course, this is the establishment of a favorable environment for regulation of ICT and development of AI, and its introduction horizontally in all the sectors of economy. And therefore, now we are taking a look at this conference, and we have a lot of hopes, because we hope that it will also define our contribution into the development of telecommunication solutions for the upcoming 4 years. Thank you. Thank you very much, Natalia. Colleagues, do you have any questions to what you have just heard? Since you are trying to identify your questions, you know, there is a notion of significant online communication, which anticipates that such access can be on demand. And in telecom community, there was the idea of connecting connected, and ITU is also the is also following the same path. Does it mean that the paradigm is shifting, is changing, and is it worse to pursue this way because, people do not have their cell phones in the pocket with connected to internet? Is this logic correct? Well, I believe that we should not talk about the paradigm shift because the logo of ITU is to connect connected, and probably there is a huge gap in terms of the current data. 2.6 billion people do not have any opportunity to use the telecommunication and internet networks. And therefore, we have to go deep and analyze the details of this number. Is it insufficient coverage of the territory, or is it inaccessible price level which disables the people to buy the devices and get connected, or are we talking about a very low level of connections? Therefore, I believe that it is necessary to analyze deeply these numbers. And therefore, I wouldn't have changed this motto about connecting connected, talking about the coverage and the possibility to get connected. But when we talk about the principle of universal access of ITU, and when ITU is requesting for stat data and is conducting surveys among the population on the extent to which internet is used, of course, they usually mean that the internet can be used once a month, and or how frequently people have a possibility to use internet. In other words, we are not talking about continuous, non-stop use of internet by the people. We are talking about the possibility of getting connected to internet and the use of internet from time to time, and therefore it is a statistically significant parameter. And probably, in my understanding at least, we have to pay more attention to the quality, to price accessibility, and quality of the use of data. In other words, we do not state here that we use data or connection to play games. But what we are talking about is the development of e-commerce, as well as the use of e-government services use. In other words, meaningful use of internet. And therefore, this is what really matters. And through this prism, ITU is looking at this concept of universal and significant connectivity. Okay, I've got it. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, do you have any other questions? Yeah, I see a raised hand. Please give the mic to the first row. Good afternoon. Yolana Sapyan. I'm from RIPE NCC. And I think that Leonid very well stated about meaningful connectivity. Do you think, Liana, that it is high time for us to change the paradigm? Because when we try to get a deep understanding of this meaningful connectivity, there is also the understanding of connectivity through 3G networks, and whereas some of the telecommunication providers are now switching to 4G, 5G, others are even thinking about 6G, as well as the services that are not available through 3G, for example, AI, satellite navigation, or I would say the telemedicine. Shouldn't we start talking about a universal quality of communication that is securing the promotion of digital services? In other words, a kind of a connectivity or connection that will provide a universal access to high-quality digital services that can be identified by every country individually, but some critical services should be available. Yeah, I think that probably it is necessary to talk about it, and therefore the member countries are raising this issue and usually raise this particular question during their conferences, and RIPE and CC conferences also raise this issue. But I believe that ITU is the platform during which the countries will have to discuss the issues that they're facing or problems that they encounter. And during the conferences, we do it the same. Why the development conference? Because probably here, as I have already mentioned at the very beginning of my presentation, that the information will be dealing mainly with the services provision to the population, and we have to look through this prism on the development of the infrastructure and network development. And during the development conference, there will be a very good opportunity provided to everybody to discuss not only the infrastructure issues, but also how they influence on the quality of services and providing of communication in remote areas, on the price accessibility as well. Yes, of course, we have to discuss all these issues. We have to raise them. But as a secretariat of ITU, probably we are ready to support and to help and to listen very attentively to member countries, member states, through regional initiatives that, as you have already seen on my slides, one of the area of our activities is the establishment of the regulatory environment that will be facilitating the development of infrastructure and telecommunication services. Therefore, we keep talking about it already, but the future direction of our development should be identified by everybody, and please feel free to participate in all our dialogues. And one final question, if it is available. I don't see any raised hands, therefore we would like to express our gratitude to the speakers. Thank you very much. And now the floor will be turned to Mikhail Anisimov, who is representing ICANN Corporation in East Europe and Central Asia. Mikhail, please, let's talk about the priority of infrastructure development in Central Asia. Thank you very much. I'm really very glad to be here with you, with the group of ComNews. We are very much familiar. We've been working with them for quite a long period of time. Therefore, it is a great pleasure for me to see all of you right now here. And just a few words about ICANN Corporation. For those who probably don't know about us very well, we are in charge of the development of domain names and IP addresses. The first function is technical. We are supporting the infrastructure, which is in charge of the addresses system of Internet, its root part. And the second one is the coordination and the development of rules and policies which are related to the work of the address system of Internet. The system of unique identifiers always used to be a critically important part of the Internet system. This is the reason for which it is pretty conservative. And probably this is one of the advantages of this system, because it is a kind of milestone. It is one of the cornerstones for all the developments that are taking place in the network. But nevertheless, the issue on how the innovations that are taking place in Internet, technical, regulatory, will be combined, and how will they be working jointly with the already available critically important address structure of Internet. And this is probably one of the issues that we are very much interested in, and this is probably what I'm going to dedicate my report, my statement to. And just a few words about the condition, the current status of infrastructure in Central Asia. One of the functions that we are supporting are the root DNS systems. And I would say that it is probably the starting point from which we start the work of everything that is related with the addresses. When you push on the link, when you are opening an app or receiving a letter in email, this is the first thing to start working. And these elements, I would say that there are 13 big clouds that are governed by 12 independent operators and located in certain countries of the world. And some 3 years ago, the picture of Central Asia was way more modest. Now it is significantly developing, and Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan are the most successful countries in the development of this infrastructure, and the other countries are trying to get to the same goal, but the picture is like this right now. And probably there is a lot to be done here and be corrected. And now we are maintaining a dialogue with many government structures and private suppliers who would like to improve this particular critical infrastructure. The prospects are pretty promising, but nevertheless, still there is a lot of work ahead of us. And if we talk about Central Asia and talk about various technological innovations that are coming in internet or exist in parallel or exist as some additional elements, the question is how do they coexist with the already available infrastructure? And here it is the growth of the so-called crypto world. And here, of course, the talk is not only about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, but blockchain, which is creating a kind of parallel internet, because there have been already made several attempts to make parallel address systems, which are to a certain extent replacing the functions of addressing component of internet. And here probably we have a lot of not only regulatory but even ethical problems, because actually we get two parallel and very little compatibility systems. And the task of our cooperation, that way we see it, our motto is one world, one internet. We have to support a holistic rather than fragmented internet. And therefore, we need to have a lot of discussions and consultations with those companies who are promoting those alternative technologies to make sure that there will be a seamless connection between all these elements of internet, because here we are not talking about the state borders, but we are talking about the subdivision of various resources available in internet. And the next aspect that I would like to draw your attention to is satellite communication, that we are discussing a lot, and we will be discussing it today as well. And here I have to note that we are not experts in satellite communication, but the question mark is how does it coexist with the already available address infrastructure of domain names and DNS and all the infrastructure, navigation infrastructure inside internet. The importance of this issue is really very high, especially in Central Asia, because Central Asia represents countries with pretty difficult geography. And as Natalia has already mentioned, we are landlocked countries. Therefore, it is pretty difficult for us to secure the system of subwater cables, which are loaded by 99% with the traffic, internet traffic, whereas countries like Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, 90% of their territories are covered by the mountains. Therefore, it is really very difficult to install either cable infrastructure or LOS. And therefore, there are a lot of pilot projects, commercial projects that are related with the solution of this problem. And the problem is that satellite communication has a certain configuration, as well as some delays in the signal from the subscriber to the main nodes. And since the majority of you are very well familiar with the technical component of this network, we know that when we are trying to get in touch with the resource, and get access to a resource, we understand that the signal should go 5 or 6 times from us to the endpoint before we get the content that we are intending to get.
Например, какие
First, this is DNS, then there are some handshakes for the electronic connection, and over 80% of all of the traffic in the internet is encrypted messages using TLS technology. So here, some emerging issues arise: how to ensure this particular integration, the internet address system, how to make it work via the satellite channels, which we still call alternative. They still remain alternative versus classical cable infrastructure. And basically ensuring the whole combination of performance indicators which the end users perceive as quality of the connection. We need to ensure the fast response, stability of the connection. We shouldn't miss any 6 or 7 steps before the connection gets established, because the end users, they shouldn't really care by what means they get connected. What they need is to get some quality of connection at the end, and here all of the elements of this connection, cable connection or some other connection that handles traffic, these must work simultaneously. So we need to think how to make this happen. These technologies and these solutions, there are lots of those. The majority of them are in the private hands, being used separately, some sort of experimental solutions by large-scale providers. One of these solutions is available with Cloudflare that helps to move forward some of its ways of establishing encrypted connections. But for the massive scale use, it will take some time to make these useful. And yet one more aspect I'm going to talk about, because this is related to the activities of the ICANN Corporation. Next year, they open the whole round of program called New Top-Level Domains, new GTLD program. The internet address space is going to be seriously reviewed, and there will be new domain zones established. So the quantity and the diversity of inquiries coming from users to the end elements of the global internet architecture will also change. Here the question arises: how well the users, mobile operators, how well should they be connected to this infrastructure to ensure the work of these new elements of the address infrastructure? The existing address infrastructure, the most recent changes in the address space in the internet happened back in 2012, 2014. This is when we had the biggest change in the address system, so some well-balanced conditions in the system. Now we are going to have a new GTLD round where lots of changes will occur. So at this stage, we'll be doing a lot of work with these mobile telecom operators, infrastructure providers, for them to be ready for what's going to appear in the internet in 2026, 2027. The applications will be received in 2026. It will take some time to process this with the root catalog. 2027, 2028, we can expect some substantial expansion of the address space. I think these are some of the key priorities which I would like to share with you today. We've got a very narrow mandate. Well, these are the address systems, but via this substantial work, we can see how all the other areas basically touch upon and replicate the problems that relate to various technological trends related to the comms channels infrastructure that we've got both in Central Asia, Southeast Europe, and globally. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you very much, Mikhail. Any questions from the audience, please? Don't see any questions. Let me ask a moderator's question. You told us the ideology is to support the whole unfragmented internet, and for many years the internet developed as transnational information environment. But in the most recent years, we can see the formation of some national fragments, the Chinese internet, some Russian internet, negative or positive. What's ICANN's attitude to this? Do we need to break these barriers? Do we need to break these elements, or is this some sort of a natural development of the... Thank you very much for this good question. See, the whole definition of the whole non-fragmented internet seriously differs by who looks at the issue. Depending on who looks at the issue, we have our own understanding of what it is. We believe the internet is whole and non-fragmented until you use technologically compatible address systems, until you use the same standards in different countries, different national systems, and these are technologically compatible. In this sense, the examples he quoted, what specifically relates to the work the Chinese regulators, these borders, they mostly go through the content, not the standards or infrastructure, because we still have a possibility from any country of the world, well, maybe with some exceptions, using any devices, any software, we can visit the Chinese websites. We get this .cn websites, which means the standards are compatible. The traffic comes to the IP addresses, which are used by the Chinese companies, which means there is a flat, non-fragmented space there. And all those initiatives that are being discussed by various countries or being implemented by various countries, we look at these and we believe every government has his or her own right to define the risks. This is their picture of the world, this is their risk model, and we cannot actually, basically we shouldn't be assessing these. Until this technological compatibility remains standards, technologies, and elements, we believe the internet is non-fragmented, and this is the main achievement we would like to keep like that. Thank you. See you hand. Please pass the mic to the first row. Hello again. There is one book by Armenian author Arman Tsarayan. On the boy and the girl, they sit together and they're having a wonderful time, and the boy has some sadness in his eyes, and the girl asks, "Why are you so sad?" "Oh, I feel that something is wrong somewhere in the world." So what do you think? Do you have this kind of a feeling that something is still wrong, or something can go wrong at some point of time, and if yes, then what? Well, in fact, 3 slides of my presentation have been dedicated to that. If you paid attention to those, well, there are various technological innovations, specifically different types of discussions about the possibility of using these. If we only talk about the technical part now. And our objective now is to turn this danger into some sort of a discussion must result in some mutually acceptable results. How can all these technological islands can coexist as one single address ecosystem? But this is about the technical part. Of course, there are lots of other challenges. For instance, the questions about who is involved in the decision-making, what are the relations between those parties. And here I must note some of the global processes which are happening. For instance, the process that relates to reconfirmation of the current mandate. It relates, well, very briefly about who is capable of making decisions, who participates as an observer, who participates as a fully-fledged participant of this. And I think here There are lots of options for the future, but I'm inclined to look at this quite optimistically. And just one more question, if you allow me. Very important story that you announced, the launch of the new top-level domains, the receiving applications. It's going to be happening next year. I remember last when you started accepting these, receiving these applications, and you expanded up-tier domain, and I can turn the story with domain regulation in business. And you reduce the value of each individual domain because every company, every structure was trying to stick to their domains, functional domains, .kz or international.com. But now the value of these isn't really that great because you can register your domain and there are hundreds of options. On the other hand, well, you can't call it cyber squatting, but some people register the domain and domain zone number 17 and then reselling those domains. What's your outlook for this? Is there more business opportunities, business for ICANN, or opportunities for actual businesses? Okay, this is a good question. Look, it's really, I think we need to cross the T's right away. ICANN is no commercial entity. We do not derive any commercial profits from money we get. All of our reports are available because we are a transparent entity. Specifically relates to the value of the domain names. Here I can see only a positive impact because we are stepping away from, let's say, with the development of choice, appearance of greater choice. People open their own resources, they are no longer connected to the functional domain zones or the small number of joint domain zones. The legacy, there is only about a dozen, comnet or the org. After the first stage of GTLD program, there are about 1,000 new domains, which provides a much greater range, a much greater choice. And you can find something, and I think this has a positive impact on pricing, because those domains, the story with a limited number of legacy domains could result in cyber squatting because people would occupy all of these domains and they couldn't go and get it registered. You had to buy things. Now, when you have alternatives, this reduces cyber squatting. So we have some of the mechanisms and we basically tell people how this works. There is such mechanism, trademark levy house, the owners of trademarks or brand names, they come to us and in advance they can preventively block the possibility of registering big domain names that has names similar to their brand names, geographical names, and so on. This is precisely done to prevent the problems you mentioned. And the very brief question at the end, you didn't say anything about domain zones and national languages. IDN, do you plan to expand those, and what's your take on this story? As you fairly noted, it depends on the observers. Without observers, there is no object. How successful is the story with the national language domains? Well, again, here we're talking about various indicators of success. We believe the story is extremely successful due to a number of reasons. Globally, well, since these are country-based domains, the domains associated with the specific countries and geographical areas. And basically, there are some additions. There are examples of extremely successful domain zones. One of them is the Russian zone.ru. There are 700,000 domain zones, and this is even greater than the Latin national zones. for the huge number of countries. So the numbers speak for themselves. And this number continues being the same for over 15 years. Recently, the .rf Russian Federation, they celebrated the 15th anniversary. Before my can life, I used to work in the registry of the Russian domains and have anything to do with this. Have a few things to do with it. And there are some very good indicators shown by Indian domains, Arabic domains, Chinese domains, in the countries of our region, the other countries. Some of the best ones apart from Russia are in Belarus. They have a large number of domains, they're in big demand, and these are domains again in Cyrillic. This is a new GTLD. This is domain.moscow. There are about 30,000 of those. This is also a very good indicator and commercially valid one. We are expecting the inflow of applications like that in the new round, because this is going to be open for this. The focus of the program of this year is specifically designed to target those individuals who are underrepresented in the internet. This is our approach to various connects, talking about the physical connections, ensuring the possibility of reaching the internet. We're talking about the actual representation and ability to use this address infrastructure. And according to our outlook, we expect some of the applications of the national languages, specifically linguistic or cultural minorities, which are underrepresented right now. Thank you, colleagues. If you don't have any further questions, let's thank Mikhail. Before I introduce our next speaker, technical announcement. In a few speakers' time, we'll have presentation in English. That you didn't get your headset yet, so please raise your hands for those who need this headphone. Now I'd like to invite to the online mic Mr. Olzhas Kamerov, Deputy Chairman of the Telecommunications Committee, Ministry of the Digital Development Innovations in the Aerospace Industry, the Republic of Kazakhstan. Olzhas will share his view on the development of the telecom industry in Kazakhstan. Olzhas, over to you. Digital mic is yours. Hello, can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you, we can see you. Hello. Hello, distinguished participants and guests. I would like to welcome all of you at the International Conference Telecom Eurasia. I should be able to tell you more about the telecoms industry development in Kazakhstan, the conditions of globalization, joint investments. And, telecoms are playing the major role. Electronic communications market must grow. The estimated size of the market is $50 billion US. The increase of the forecast period. Kazakhstan is taking account of the global growth, trying to direct investments into this sector. Right now, we are number 8 in the global online service and number 24 in the Global Development Index of the government. Also got some awards. The future awards for global and inclusive information. Internet is playing the important role in our everyday life, allowing access to the government services, education, healthcare, and this is also about digitalization of the economy. The share of the internet population using internet is on par with some of the advanced countries. According to the Telecoms Development Index, Kazakhstan is rated number 41 based on the results of 2024. And in terms of the internet access, we're number 54 out of 193 countries. Better quality and access is confirmed by the international ratings. which indicates the success of the country's policy in their telecoms. Development of digital infrastructure is one of the main objectives of the ministry. Ministry is taking some effort to develop fixed and mobile communications. The ministry is addressing the task to eliminate the digital gaps and to allow equal access to the internet for the whole country's population. The total length of the fiber optic cable lines is 10,000 kilometers in Kazakhstan. Based on the results of 2024, the length of those was 130,000 kilometers.
In terms of mobile internet, if we compare it with 2013, the services were provided for the total of 147 billion KZT, and in 2024, 1 and 2. Therefore, there is almost a twofold increase. And in 2022, we've conducted a 5G auction, and as of the result of this auction, the operators have obtained the right to use 5G internet. And according to the undertaken responsibilities in 20 largest cities, during 2 years, we've been developing 5G technologies. In 2024, in Kazakhstan, we have adopted the national plan on available internet, and we are trying to resolve the development of wireless infrastructure. And since we are enabling the national capacity, there is a project on laying down the fiber optic lines for the total distance of 380-400 kilometers on the bottom of the Caspian Sea. And Kazakh Telecom is in charge of implementation of this project, and Azik Telecom from Azerbaijan is co-contractor. We are also providing the alternative physical route, and we are implementing the international connection. The implementation of this project on laying down the cable on the bottom of the Caspian Sea is also anticipating the fiber optic line in the surface of Kazakhstan and on the bottom of the Caspian Sea in the part of Azerbaijan. And the next one is the center of data processing of no lower than tier 3 with the implementation term until 2027. And we are also providing the alternative route for transiting traffic from Central Asia to Europe. And the next project is the construction of the local network to provide fixed high rate internet access to the population. And we are increasing the capital expenses. We are attracting the small telecoms operator. These are the capex that we have for laying down the fiber optic lines. And in this project, we anticipate that we will be able to enable the coverage of about 2 million users, subscribers, and more than 440,000 households. The next project is fiber optic lines to their villages. We have more than 6,500 various villages and settlements in the rural area, and right now only 2,500 of them are covered with internet, and we are planning to fill the gap and to make fiber optic lines available for 4,000 subscribers more. And it is planned that the government will undertake a responsibility to pay for the services to more than 5,000 government establishments, and we also motivate the investors that before they get state bodies connected to 4G, they will be responsible for provision of the internet coverage in the village. And the next area of activity is 5G infrastructure development. Right now, in 20 cities of Kazakhstan, we have already established 2,430 5G base stations, and it is expected that their number will be more than 3,500 very soon. And one of the factors of wireless communication development is Satcom, because there are some remote agricultural areas, rural areas, where the density of population is very low. Sometimes in the settlements there are no more than 200 inhabitants, and we have already provided them with the access points, public access points for 176 villages through our KazSat, Kazakhstani satellite, and right now we are working with geostationary operator Ulan-B, and we have already conducted negotiations and plan to cover 320 villages. And also last year, in accordance with the order of the President of Kazakhstan, we are providing the broadband internet at schools. Right now, it's 2,678 schools that have already got connected through Starlink, and it is a pilot project. At the same time, we are conducting negotiations with the same company on providing a regulatory basis for connection to this internet. And of course, finally, I would like to mention that our goals are very ambitious. I'm pretty sure that during this discussion, you will get a lot of very meaningful ideas. And thank you very much, dear colleagues. I am ready to entertain your questions. Thank you very much, Oljas. And there are a few questions, if I may. The first question is about 5G. You mentioned that in 2025, the development project will be completed. Does it mean that the construction of deployment of 5G network is going to be over and no more base stations will be installed, or does it mean that eventually the operators will be developing 5G in less attractive commercially wise territories? No, you know, when we issued the bid, we mentioned that there will be some responsibilities for the bid winners, because they will have to cover 60% of the largest 3 cities in the Republic of Kazakhstan, which is transliterated into more than 65 5G base stations. And then the first development will be the economic feasibility of the operator. And then I'm pretty sure we will continue our negotiations with them. I'm not saying that the 5G infrastructure development is going to be over after that. Do we expect another tender for the third license of 5G? We work along these lines, and you know that the resources are limited, and there are some frequencies which are necessary for introduction of 5G, but unfortunately they are busy. Now we work on the liberation of those frequencies, and once this task is implemented, then we will be ready to issue the next tender. Can you forecast when will it take place? Well, you know, I think it is too premature to talk about any dates. And of course, I have to ask a question about Starlink, because you launched a pilot project on the provision of this satellite technology to rural schools. And as far as I know, there are not any stations to connect to Starlink here in Kazakhstan. You're ready to think about this project and to launch it, or what do you think about the continuation of the school project? Because the issue of provision of information to schools is a very important task. Yes, of course. Right now, we are very actively negotiating and discussing with SpaceX company, and we already have some preliminary results, and I believe that the technical solutions are also available on the provision of national security requirements. And we are planning that starting January 1, plus minus 2 months in 2026, it will be possible to work with Starlink in the territory of the Republic of Kazakhstan. Therefore, we keep working along these lines in this area. But if we will not be able to reach any agreement, there is some preliminary agreements with one lab company, so that all those schools which are already connected through Starlink will get a different operator. Does it mean that if by January 1, 26, there won't be any connection stations for Starlink, this means that on January 2, 26, all the equipment is going to be dismounted in schools? You know, we have different approaches with regard to provision of protection of personal data, and making sure that the security and safety will be guaranteed to the subscribers. Therefore, all the possible technical solutions are being worked through right now. Dear colleagues, do you have any other questions to distinguished Mr. Oljas? Well, I see one hand here. Please give the mic. Please introduce yourself. Good afternoon. My name is Shevchenko. I am from Ingastra. And my question is as follows. As there is a very active interaction with Starweb and Starlink, and the use of Incasat will expire very soon. Does it mean that you are going to turn down the use of this equipment? What are your plans? Well, you know, there are two satellites of KASSAT-2 and KASSAT-3 on the orbit, and these satellites will remain in use, but there is a different department which is in charge of KASSAT, airspace department. And we are also planning to replace, because the lifespan of this satellites will expire very soon, and it will be replaced by the new one. And right now, the digital television and radio broadcasting is impossible without a geostationary operator involvement, and we will also we are also planning to cover with digital television broadcasting 100% of the population in Kazakhstan. And there is a Republican Center of Space Communication, which is controlling and managing our satellites. Well, I'm not going to ask about the producers. When are you planning to launch a new satellite? Well, as far as I know, you know, it is not my direct responsibility, but as far as I know, it is planned to launch the new KASSAT in 2029. Therefore, our satellites will be operational by 29. Colleagues, are there any other questions? Yes, and then there is another hand.
Sorry, I have to ask in English. I don't know Russian. Sorry about that. I am from MTEL. My question to you is, what are the plans by Ministry on fiber to the home connectivity in Kazakhstan? Thank you.
I'm sorry, I did not manage to activate the interpretation function. The question was about the FTTB technology development in Kazakhstan.
У нас есть большой проект, как я в презентации говорил.
Yes, there is a big project, as I have already mentioned before. The territory of Kazakhstan is very vast, and there are a lot of villages where we don't have yet the fiber optic lines, and there are two projects. One of them is fiber optic lines in rural areas, and we are signing an agreement with a private investor who is planning to invest more than 200 billion in construction of fiber optic lines. And there is another one, those villages which where the fiber optic lines are already available, but the networks are not. We are also planning some capex for deployment of the networks in those FTTB projects in the villages, and I hope that next year we will get down to the construction. Could you please mention the name of this investor who will be working on this project? It's a joint stock company, Kazakh Telecom. Sorry, I didn't hear you very well. It's Kazakh Telecom. It's joint stock company Kazakh Telecom. Thank you. Yes, and the final question from the first row. Thank you very much for the presentation. My name is Alexander Gulyaev. I'm representing Huawei. And the question is about the development plans for 5G. You mentioned that you are now preparing the frequency ranges, and could you please tell us what kind of frequencies are you talking about? And is there a possibility for the operator to use the available frequencies for the shift to 5G when the market will require it? With regard to the available bands, we do have the frequency bands which are currently occupied by digital radio broadcasting. We were also thinking about 3600, 3800, which is also occupied by various technologies, and in the majority of cases, some obsolete technologies are occupying these frequencies. And what also was proposed was 6G range and 5G, and this is why all these frequency ranges are occupied. Some little frequencies are available. You know, it's 100 megahertz not yet available for 5G, and this is the reason for which we are working now on liberating the encoding range to introduce 5G technologies in the country. Okay, thank you very much. And the final question, please be brief. Yes, it's a very short question. What is the policy of the government bodies in the area of development and providing of peeling here in Kazakhstan? Billing, as of today, is implemented by the telecom operators independently. The question was not about billing. The question was about peering policy. Well, sorry, I didn't hear you very well. Well, as of today, it is stipulated by the legislation. It's a monopoly, and the State Technical Service is in charge of this function. However, we are working to make sure that this area will not be monopolized, and it will be available in the market, in the competitive market. So does it mean that very shortly we can expect various points where the traffic will be exchanged? Yes, exactly. In the framework of the order adopted by the President of Kazakhstan, we are working on the telecommunication centers and data processing centers, and we are discussing with the market players, and we have already drafted the amendments and changes to be introduced into the current legislation. So it is being analyzed by the relevant government authority, and it is also available in the public platform for discussion. So if you want, feel free to familiarize with this document. Okay, thank you very much for finding the time to join us today. Thank you very much, distinguished Oljas, for your participation in our discussion. Well, thank you very much. Now, let us continue. I would like to turn the floor to our colleague, Mr. Yemelyanov, who is the president of Kazakhstani Association of Telecoms Operators, who is going to tell us about the main topics of the national market of telecom services.
Now you could probably hear me, colleagues. Hello, my name is Oleg Yemelyanov, Kazakhstan Associations of the Telecom Operators. So the member of the Public Council, we are having some trouble here. The member of the Public Council of the Ministry of the Digital Development, I participate in a whole range, the working group, the lower house of the parliament, the other ministries. The previous speaker, we work with him very closely. My presentation is going to be closely related to the previous presentation. I'll be showing some of the same slides you have seen previously. This is what my presentation is about. To often participate in various events, talk to multiple people who do a lot of work in our association. And I note at this point that many people have no idea what is telecom in Kazakhstan, how is this regulated, what are the performance indicators, what are the rules of the game. Many people have no clue, so I decided to make a brief introduction, some of the basic stuff. In order to enable you to understand how to develop this industry, we need to understand where this is right now. So this is what my presentation is about. And in order to be able to tell you, I need to tell you what is telecommunications. The law on telecommunications, this is the collection, processing, transportation, distribution of information, postal messages, and postal money remittance. The law on telecoms is about 21 years old, so this definition in the law is somewhat outdated, is no longer relevant, because postal money remittances and telecoms, in our times, these should probably be separated. Telecom services as services for accepting, processing, storage, transmission, delivery of special messages. Somewhat a complicated definition. The existing telecoms rules define three types of telephone, mobile, and internet access. Some of the statistics, a little bit, I got some info from the year 2023, year 2025, not the year 2024. The reason why, since the year 2023, I started doing these presentations, so I make some comparisons, trying to understand how the trends change. So in terms of mobile telecommunications, the speed test global index, we are rated at number 64. Used to be 64, now we are at now 51. So the internet access has improved. The internet has become better. Fixed, we also got some improvements from 94 to 88, and the internet speed also improved. The number of households with the fixed internet access has improved. We had less than 3 million, now it's 3.2 million. Mobile telecom customers, we have more of those. Fixed telephone lines, we got fewer of those, which is clear and can be easily explained. These more fixed phone lines are no longer desired. This is the industry development dynamics. Like in the previous presentation, I'll just showed you some of the same examples. Number of base stations is increasing. The number of base stations, 5G, is also growing, and by year 2027 there will be about 3,500 of those. Connecting rural areas to the internet as part of the national project is also growing. In subsidizing, which Oljas mentioned, according to the plans, it must also improve. Well, I think we'll be speaking separately about these things as we start our panel discussion, so I will be able to tell you more about the nuances of this development. But now, if you take a look at the dynamics, you can see that the industry is growing and it is developing. The telecoms market, this is some official data, year 2024, because the 25 is still running. It wouldn't be interesting to take a look at the quarterly data, but for yearly data, 1.3 trillion tenge. The long-distance calls have the lowest profits. It's declining local telephony, television, data. Internet access services provide major revenues. Also send a table showing B2C for natural persons. You can see that natural persons consume most of the internet access service. Also, natural persons watch TV, data transmission, they don't need it, which is quite obvious. Legal framework, something that we are relying in our work. Of course, the main point is our law on telecoms. This is the foundation. The foundation law, it's 21 years old. It's been subjected to more than 90 amendments. Right now, there is a 94th version being discussed. Parliament is now looking at the new set of amendments, amendments number 95. There has been an ambitious idea to cancel this law at the beginning of the year and come up with a new, more relevant law, remove all of the old irrelevant stuff, because it was all related to telephony. Many things no longer correlate to each other. So you can write the whole separate paper, finding some nuances and discrepancies in the law. But because of the bureaucratic hurdles, the law is not going to be rewritten. We will try to make it more to the point, more contemporary. Right now, the government is looking, and soon we will submit this to the parliament. We also have the telecom service rules. They also that get regularly amended. Now there is a 12th version. And now, as part of the public counsel duty, I got the new version, new update. So soon we will have a new version. Of course, we have a large number of provisions that regulate the law, such as quality indicators, methodologies, lots of different bylaws and regulations. Lots of these things got outdated too, so it requires a lot of work to keep it all relevant. Some of the key players, we have a regulator, such as the Ministry of the Digital Development, the key one. Its subsidiaries, the Telecoms Committee, which is developing the telecoms policy. There are local comms inspections. Although recently their functions got reduced, and their functions were given to the local governments. So right now the comms inspections are no longer relevant. The indicators, well, basically we have this company called GTS, Government Technical Service. There is monopoly, traffic exchange system. They are all managed by GTS. There is management locations, and there is a separate internet called single portal for accessing internet. All of the government authorities must connect to the internet via this single portal. This is out of the security concerns to make sure that no one steals the government information. Well, this brings some inconvenience to the government, but the security is at the very highest level. And local executive bodies, telecoms operators, hosters, despite the fact we have private AX, some vendors, suppliers, and the classical arrangement. The top level is highly specific for Kazakhstan. The bottom part is a standard one, like in most other countries. Types of mobile telecom operators. The law also defines the telecom operators are natural and physical corporate entities providing telecom services or exporting this. I don't like this term. I've been trying to replace it for quite some time, because if you approach this, any domestic users having a router automatically becomes a telecoms operator, which is not correct. And there has been some large-scale discussion happening. The basic definition, you simply need to change it, but it's really hard. And this creates a lot of trouble. The law defines the operators of long-distance calls, international calls, satellite telecoms operators, mobile operators. What are the legal nuances for the mobile operators, internet access, or non-licensed type of activity? Licenses for the telecoms. Internet access services, no licenses required except for some of the nuances. Notification process exists for the telecom services. You must notify the telecoms committee that you started offering such services, or you finished your activities in this area. The network control center must be located in Kazakhstan. You must be able to comply with the telecom service rules. There is some responsibility, penalties and fines will apply, but there is a nuance. There are some rules. Rules are being amended all the time, but because of the bureaucratic things, no one has been held liable for anything. For the past few years, according to the prosecutor's office, they haven't charged or fined anyone. I spend a lot of effort to ensure some kind of a liability to improve quality of services provided. There is a requirement to provide services in a quality way as defined by the government norms. The degree of responsibility is very high. Special penalties may apply. Depending on the size of your business, it's micro business, a small fine, big business, a big fine. For poor quality services, they issue fines. And there are specific availability of SORM, the government security module. For non-installation of this module in the network, there is some admin liability. Fines and penalties will apply. There is this funny thing, I came across this. I saw some of the cases when, for the repeated violation within 1 year of if you don't have this government module installed, there is this penalty as the license suspension, and this is but this type of activity is not licensed. When they catch people for not having this module and they suspend their license, and in the court they say they have no license. How can you suspend it? What should I do? The admin code has only one thing, only one punishment: license suspension. okay, we suspend these non-existing licenses. Everyone knows about this problem, and I think there is some movement in this direction. No suspensions are planned, but the penalties are likely to be increased. I said that the Internet Access Service is not licensed type of activities, but some of the licenses are required for some type of activities. The long-distance phone calls, international phone calls, satellite mobile telecoms, and recently they introduced this new change, the loan notifications and satellite communication using non-geostationary satellites. They started regulating these now. Mobile operators in Kazakhstan, there are 3 at the moment. Recently, you probably heard that Tele2 was sold to the international investor, Kazakh Telecom. So we've got 3 independent, Kcell, Altel, Tele2, and Beeline. Total number of subscribers is 26 million. The country's population 20 million. The number of customers is greater than the number of country's residents. The shares are about equal, about 1/3 of the market. There are some specific requirements to the operators obtaining a mandatory license with the obligations. Obligations are quite strict. In all of the residential areas of Kazakhstan, with more than 250 residents, in all of these areas, you must be able to provide mobile telecom service. Mobile operators, they are charged with the extra tax of 1.4%. Totally, the country's budget gets 12 billion tenge from these taxes. Also, buying frequencies, this is what they need to do. The year, 2 years ago, they sold 5G auctions at an auction for 156 billion tenge. This is a huge amount of money. To remain a mobile operator, you need to have a lot of money. Speaking about long-distance international phone calls, you need to obtain a license. They need to pay an extra tax of 1.4%. Should the operator decide to sell more than 10% of shares, this is going to be done only subject to the permission by the government. The government should be able to decide whether you can sell your share. An important point, passing the international traffic via the mobile telecoms. Basically, any telecoms operator can buy international connections from the other international telecom operators. What operators are out there? They also ban these operators to exchange internet traffic amongst the operator overseas. All of the local traffic must remain in Kazakhstan. They should get connected to the traffic exchange points. There are some monopoly traffic exchange points managed by the government, and all of the long-distance operators must connect to these, provide free traffic, receive free traffic, give their own traffic, get free traffic. There is no community. You cannot refuse. Basically, everything you get is via this official connection. Totally 11 licenses have been issued for the long-distance international phone call operators. The fully fledged trunk operators are the first 4: Kazakh Telecom, TNS Plus, Trans Telecom, Jusan Telecom. These are fully fledged operators that cover the whole country. Jusan Mobile. In the center, in the north Kazakhstan, in the west and east, there is TNS Trans Telecom. There is Astel. This is mostly a satellite operator. They have their own com connections to the China. SmartNet, they have connections to Kyrgyzstan. Vista Technology, they do have some of the connections too. All of the other companies, frankly speaking, I didn't see them working. They've got licenses, but they hardly do any business. So fully fledged highway operators, there are 4. Well, I'm not trying to diminish their importance, but the maximum quality and availability is only provided by these 4 operators, and the next 3 might add a few extra services. No, we don't have a lot of time left. Fixed telecom operators, well, it's a distorted picture. 57%, this is Kazakh Telecom, 20% Beeline, and about 13% some alternative operators. This is confirmed if you take a look at Astana. This is the official data from the Competition Protection Agency from Astana. They provide this data. You can see that these 2 operators, they control 85% of the market. The remaining 16%, they only take 16% of the market. And the same trend is typical for the rest of the country. The traffic exchange points, the GTS has a monopoly for the technical support of these traffic exchange points. Traffic exchange points are available in all of the major cities. And the capital, Astana, Almaty. Total traffic about 300 gigabits per second. Free of charge traffic connection is free. Any operator, international operator, can get connected.
They are obliged to get connected there, but the local operators can get connected there for free. And of course, for the regional operators, it's a free source of traffic, but there are, of course, some details, some nuances there, and we can discuss them informally. And the summary on connectivity, the foreign connectivity is implemented through international operators. The exchange of KZ traffic outside the Republic of Kazakhstan is prohibited, and the operators are obliged to get connected to the traffic point for free. The rest of the operators can get connected to a connectivity point directly, and the direct billing between the operators is not prohibited for the time being. Now, with regard to the quality indicators, there is the order of the minister, which enlists all the quality parameters, and if the operator does not provide the services compliant with those parameters, such operator will be fined. The ping should be not longer than 20 milliseconds, and the losses no more than 20%. And the 3G guaranteed bitrate 1 megabits, 4G guaranteed bitrate 5 megabits per second, and 5G is being developed right now because, again, there was established a working group and they would like to get the guaranteed 50 megabytes per second. But of course, the telecom operators are opposing these numbers very much. And of course, all the changes will have to take place inside the operator's network, and such minimal requirements the operator will have to be compliant with. This is actually it, and if you have any other questions, I'm ready to answer your questions. I understand that it was a very hasty presentation, but I'm available, and we can continue our discussion during informal communication as well as during the Q&A session after plenary. Okay, thank you very much. Indeed, since we are pressed for time, probably the questions to Oleg will be received during Q&A session. Ivan Sipian, who is the senior advisor from RIPE NCC, and Ivan Avsipian will be talking about the connectivity in the region of Central Asia. I am calling on you to be very brief because we are running out of time. Well, when I was entering this session, I've seen a very nice map, and I recommend everybody to take these maps because it is really very informative. And my presentation is on connectivity and security of routing, internet routing in Central Asia. Therefore, my questions were supposed to be pretty timely for this presentation because we will provide the information on peering, not in separate individual countries, but we will be talking about the connectivity of Central Asian countries and anticipating the questions that you may have on how we do the measurements. I can tell you that in this presentation, we will try to analyze two major parameters. The first one is the extent to which the routes were optimal or they were not optimal, and what are the safety and routing violations we may encounter. And we have already encountered, and that may probably take place in our countries and will cause some very serious threats. Okay, so how did we do this? We actually have taken all the Atlas tests, and we decided to select trace route measurement type. We took all the country pairs in the regions, and we identified all the packages routing between the countries, and we have covered a specific procedure about which we can talk a little bit later. We've done those measurements in 22 and 24, and therefore we have a kind of possibility to compare both analysis to understand what has improved and what has deteriorated. And I can tell you that, of course, there is an improvement. And even if you take a look at the graphs and say, oh, God, it's so bad, but as a matter of fact, it's not that bad. And of course, you can also take a look at it during the upcoming event in Almaty, which is going to be conducted on September 25-26. So please feel free to get there and to participate. What kind of tests do we have? We have 90 tests in 4 countries, in Kazakhstan 56, in Kyrgyzstan 23, in Tajikistan a little bit more than 11, and in Uzbekistan 14. The destination points are public resources of the countries, and you can take a look at the location of those Atlas tests. And those data are picked up from those tests. So it's not like, somebody will say, I do have such connectivity, whereas such connectivity is not available. I would say that the information is picked up from the network, and this information is very accurate. What are the problems? Their Atlas tests are not available in every network, and this is the reason that for which, from this point of view, the tests might not be very accurate, but traceroute is not indicating the topology of L1 and L2. And we will be discussing the measures to improve accuracy. Okay, so how does the traffic from Kazakhstan to Kyrgyzstan is flowing? As a matter of fact, there are some changes here, and there are many more direct routes. If you take the traffic from Kazakhstan to Kyrgyzstan, it is a direct traffic. There is a very small percentage which is running through Russia and then gets back to Kazakhstan and then runs to Kyrgyzstan. But in the majority of cases, it is direct traffic. But unfortunately, the situation is very different for the traffic from Kyrgyzstan to Kazakhstan. If you take a look at this graph, this is what you will see. For example, here, yes, here you can say, oh gosh, from Estonia, Sweden, Hong Kong, Great Britain, Finland, and then everything is turning around, and it goes going forth and backwards, and not everybody enjoys it. And then it reaches Kazakhstan. From Kazakhstan to Tajikistan, there are many more routes, and some of the routes are pretty long. For example, from Kazakhstan to Tajikistan, you can go first to Uzbekistan and then to Tajikistan, and there is also traffic running through Russia. A part of traffic is running through Hong Kong, Germany, even UK. But if you compare the situation with 2022, and there are some positive changes because there is much more traffic without detouring the region. And again, I can tell you that the way back from Tajikistan to Kazakhstan is even more sophisticated than the traffic from Kyrgyzstan to Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan to Turkmenistan, well, looks like everything should run directly from one country to another. However, this is not the case, because in some cases it runs through France, Russia, Azerbaijan, Germany, and the main transit country is Uzbekistan, which replaced the Russian Federation. And the traffic from 2022 has become more local, more regionalized. However, there are some very, very long routes. You see Kazakhstan, France, Sweden, Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan. So it's really too long. Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, again, Germany, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, France, Sweden, which in principle is not very understandable, but eventually I will explain why, because there are some conclusions about the reasons for which it happens. But again, the majority of the routes are direct. The main transit country is Germany, for whichever reason, instead of the Russian Federation. And again, some of the routes are too long and they are not optimal. Okay, we will not talk at great lengths here because it is not pertaining to Kazakhstan so much. And the presentation is going to be available. You will have access to it. And now let me go to the conclusions. There is a certain diversification in Kyrgyzstan. There is also a several-fold increase in the role of Uzbekistan as a transit country, and there is also a very good development in Kazakhstan. There is the traffic is pretty asymmetric, and it is probably the next task of the region to get rid of this asymmetry, and the distribution of the traffic in Kazakhstan was demonstrated by some of our speakers. It might be pretty interesting. Or provision of the peering policy, that there is one of the main problems, the transparent peering policy for all operators in the region. And sometimes intra-regional traffic is covering almost the whole planet because of incorrect participation with China Mobile, Kogan. Such operators can be used and for global connectivity, but not for the connectivity between Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. So this is what I wanted to tell you about the regional traffic, and there is a small portion of the ideas on the internet security in Central Asia. We were talking about cybersecurity, which has various aspects, as a matter of fact. And here is the routing security aspect, and what is the main problem, which is not very good here in the region. What is routing security? It is the protection of internet routes from incorrect announcements that can be caused either by technical errors, not by, or maybe sometimes by some malignant actions. And a reliable routing will guarantee that internet traffic will reach the destination point without any changes or losses, and that we were planning. And the operators or fraudsters can reroute the traffic that will cause either failures or data robbery. And I'm not theoretizing there, because actually such cases have already taken place in reality, and we are using RPKI for security. Why? Because BGP, when it was developing, it was not anticipating the development of network challenges. And RPKI helps to prevent such problems, and it consists of route region authorization and route region validation. And I'm going to tell you where the problem is here. I'm going to give you the concrete examples of incidents when, for example, we believed that it will not touch us. However, we may encounter such problems, and very often in the situations when we do not expect it. For example, in 2008, Pakistan Telecom captured IP YouTube addresses, and of course that incident caused a global failure. Yes, of course, we can anticipate now, could Pakistan Telecom, for example, capture IP YouTube addresses, but instead the addresses of your network, of your organization and resources? Why not? Maybe not Pakistan Telecom, maybe a different organization. In 2023, in July, there was an attempt to block Telegram, and there was an erroneous BGP announcement which caused an incident which really had a huge global visibility. But the networks with ROV understood it, and they refused the incorrect routing. Cloudflare incident, when the configuration error of routing also caused some failure in the services, but ROV networks helped to prevent the proliferation of erroneous routing. Therefore, it helps. If you tell us that you never faced such problems, but unfortunately this is not the case because you have already encountered it, all over the world there were a lot of incidents. In the US 6,256, in China 2,096, and talking about the region, in Tajikistan such number was greatest, 38 cases, and in Kazakhstan there were all in all 18 such cases, which is not few. Now, what can be done about it? This is ROA, and if you take a look at the ROA, where is Kazakhstan? Yeah, Kazakhstan is right here. And with regard to V4, the percentage is 13, and 15% for V6, which is not that bad. Even so, in Kyrgyzstan, for example, for V4 it is 86% and 46% for V6. With regard to ROA, we need to have two parts, ROA and ROD. And usually you can switch it on very quickly, and the percentages will increase even if one of the central companies will integrate ROA into its networks. And you see that in some cases these percentages were growing very high. For example, when in Uzbekistan some companies decided to use it, or in Tajikistan. Here you see the graphs for Kyrgyzstan and Turkmenistan. And what is the most important thing is with regard to ROV. We conducted this study for introduction in the region of RO Vista, and we were measuring AS hegemony from 0 to 1. You can take a look at it. Here is the picture of Uzbekistan, and here is the picture of Kazakhstan. Well, you know, you can actually open every point of connectivity in Kazakhstan. When you have this presentation, you will see the foreign networks with and without ROV, and the foreign networks for which we don't have any available data. And as a matter of fact, it's very interesting, and because on the one hand it's a good graph, but on the other hand it is pretty dangerous. Take a look at your networks, and your networks should be represented here. We recommend you to switch to ROV as soon as possible, because in case of RPKI, it is not the same as our ROV6. Because in case of ROV6, we do not recommend the governments to introduce some mandatory measures, coercing measures. What we state is that it could be great for the government to start a dialogue with the operators and private companies. And in Kazakhstan, we had a very good experience of last year when the Council on the introduction of ROV6, chaired by the ministry, was established. And indeed, ROV6 is growing right now in Kazakhstan, but its introduction will require a lot of investment and a lot of capital expenses as well. And the introduction of RPKI does not require any investments or expenses. It only requires knowledge and competences so that ROA and ROV will be integrated in your networks and resources. The regulators, there are some regulators who are already doing it, for example, USA, the Netherlands. And I think that we cannot overestimate the role of Central Asia, because the security issues in our region are gaining more and more importance. And if our region is going to be safe, it will be much better not only for Central Asian region, but for a bigger region of the CIS.
Well, the other countries, Central Asia, Caucasus, and Europe in general. We are ready to facilitate for this network to be covered with our PKI, and we are ready for consultations, trainings. We do everything to enable our technical community to be ready for this change. This is it. I would like to thank my colleague who helped me to prepare this PowerPoint, Alex Semenaka. You probably know him. Any questions or comments or proposals are welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, we don't have any time, only one brief question about non-optimal traffic routing amongst the neighboring countries in Central Asia. Why do you think is the principal reason behind this? Is this a technically poorly optimized network, or for the operators is it more beneficial to roundabout to via Germany? Because of the wrong billing policy, in multiple cases for them it's easier to go around. But from the other on the other hand, is this beneficial for the government for these traffic to go via Hong Kong, Germany, Finland? I think probably not. Thank you very much. Let's thank Mr. Juan. I would like to invite Steven Jetty, Kalajera Consulting. Steven is going to tell us about the demand of 200 gigahertz for every operator. Like I said, the presentation is going to be in English, so please use your headsets.
Hello. First of all, apologies. I don't speak Russian, but I expect most of you working in the industry probably do speak English. I'm going to speak about the needs to assign 200 megahertz per operator in the 6 gigahertz band in the CIS to mobile operators. What about the 6 gigahertz band? This is a frequency range which is higher than all the bands that are currently used by mobile operators. It sits in 6425 to 7125 megahertz, and it is already, you can see the red countries, it has been identified for mobile, or as the experts call it, for IMT, at the last World Radio Communications Conference, and many other countries already started to adopt it. So you can see here the map, and I think it covers probably in the neighborhood of 75% of the world's population that will be using this band for mobile communications. And this is 5G as well as the future 6G. Why do regulators and equipment vendors and others advocate 200 megahertz per mobile operator? There are four main reasons for this. The first one is the increase in mobile traffic, and in particular traffic density. This is how many megabits per square meter or per square kilometer are demanded in cities. So it's traffic density, and traffic density is a huge problem for mobile operators. So the spectrum is useful for that. And then there is, of course, the need to deliver 5G standalone. What we currently have is 5G working together with 4G. It's not really standalone, but with standalone you get such features as network slicing, ultra-reliable mobile broadband, better speeds, and so on. And of course, with the introduction of 6G, which is scheduled for 2030, so only 5 years away, you also need a new band. That has been the case always. For every new mobile generation, you needed a new band. And last but not least is you need more spectrum to deliver 5G standalone and also 6G in an economically feasible manner. And we've heard from previous speakers, affordability is of course a huge issue. And so you've got to make it cost effective for operators to deliver connectivity. And the U6 gigahertz band does exactly that. Now, first I talked about the problem of traffic density or population density. And so we've looked at a few cities in the region, and the problem tends to be particularly acute where you have population density in excess of 6,000 people per square kilometer. And here's some numbers from different countries in the regions, and you find cities and places within cities where you have population densities of 6,000 per square kilometer or higher. So this benefit then of having the spectrum to serve high traffic densities applies to all CIS countries. And there is a previous report which Colliago produced in conjunction with the GSMA, which looks at the mid-band needs in the 2025-2030 timeframe. Here are some countries we included, and roughly countries need round about 2 gigahertz of mid-band spectrum to be able to deliver 5G as defined by the ITU. By the way, the ITU definition is a user experience data rate of 100 megabits in the downlink and 50 megabits in the uplink. The problem here in this region is, you can see it here in red, that the average number of megahertz assigned per operators is rather low in the region. It's only 135 megahertz. So we are well away from the target we need to deliver 5G advanced and 5G standalone and later 6G in an economically feasible manner. By the way, this report you can download freely from the GSMA or from the Colliago website. Now, what's behind this? I looked at traffic growth, and here's some figures from the Nordic countries. Why do I use the Nordic countries? They produce excellent statistics, and you can see that the monthly mobile data consumption is increasing. In percentage terms, it's declining, but because it's already big, in absolute terms, the annual additional traffic mobile operators have to cope with is going through the roof. We are already looking in excess of an average of 80 megabytes per capita in places such as Finland. And this trend is going to continue and will also be applicable in this region, particularly because the primary form of internet access in the CIS region is, of course, mobile. What we have seen here is just the ordinary traffic. The additional traffic we expect, or rather this data from Omdia, they expect to come on stream, let's say, in the next, starting in about 3 years and from them growing, is additional traffic generated by AI, VR, and XR. And roughly speaking, they foresee this will double the traffic that would otherwise occur. So these are very, very specific numbers. Again, these are public domain reports. You can download them from the Omdia website. So what we're likely to see is another surge in traffic. Now, you might say, who are these people who are consuming all this? Are there people here in this region who are already consuming it? And there probably are. What we have done, we didn't just look at averages. We analyzed how much data people use on average per month in 10 percentile buckets. And you can see that the highest user decile already use in excess of 100 gigabytes per user. And who are these people? On the right-hand side, we have some analysis from a Finnish operator, DNA in Finland. They analyzed who are the high users by age. And you can see it is, in fact, the younger people who are the high users in the neighborhood of 7 gigabytes per customer per month. This is against an average in the country, which is, of course, much lower. In most countries, probably in the region, we're looking here at 20, perhaps 25, 30 gigabytes per customer per month. But what that tells you, the future, when you're looking at the high users, that's the future. So definitely the indicators are that in the next few years, traffic is likely to increase dramatically. But it's not just about volume of usage, it's also about the quality of the user experience. And we had, in the earlier presentation, there was a mention of this target of 50 megabits here in Kazakhstan, which people want to implement, leaving aside the impossibility of guaranteeing this. The more you want to move towards a guaranteed data speed, in other words, the better the class of service you want to offer, the more capacity you want to make available. And I picked this chart here from the last Ericsson Mobility Report, a great publication, by the way, again, free to download. For the first time, they didn't just show graphs showing the traffic growing, but they also started to discuss the impact of, if you want to deliver a higher quality of service, for example, ultra-reliable mobile broadband network slices and so on, you need more capacity. So that is another driver why more spectrum, and in particular these U6 gigahertz, is required. This is to enable mobile networks to deliver a quality of experience like fixed network. And that, by the way, is part of the ITUR requirements for 5G. So if we want to deliver this, this is what we need to do. Now, some of you might say, hey, we've just assigned the 3 gigahertz. You know, there's plenty of spectrum, maybe 100 megahertz per operator or thereabouts. Yes, it is, and that's fantastic. But have a look at this chart here. What I'm looking at here is statistics from France. So these are official statistics, and you can see the year starting in 2000. This is the amount of mobile data traffic, and I've then related that to the amount of spectrum assigned to mobile operators. And you can see here the data traffic per megahertz of spectrum. And then you see the auction coming in there, the 3.5 gigahertz auction, which just happened here in Kazakhstan, making 400 megahertz of spectrum available. And yes, it did help the traffic per megahertz briefly decline. So that's a bit of a breezer. But then the traffic is growing so fast, you're running out again. So that running out of spectrum is a real possibility. Yes, of course, there are things operators are doing. They're installing equipment which is more spectrally efficient. They're squeezing more out of every megahertz, in particular with massive MIMO and so on. But the reality is that whilst in several CIS countries, the 3.5 network is still relatively empty. This is due to a lack of penetration of 5G devices, but this will change rapidly. So the next few years, the countries will again face the problem of running out of spectrum, or mobile internet speeds will grind to a halt. Now, the fourth reason I talked about or fourth driver I talked about is the economic issue. What's that all about? Well, initially, frequency bands had only very little spectrum, and each time when you have install a new frequency band, you have to install a radio. So the more spectrum you can squeeze in a single radio, the cheaper it becomes. With 4G, the maximum channel bandwidth was 20 megahertz. With 5G, this is going up to 100 megahertz. But the novelty about the 6 gigahertz band is that you can stick 200 megahertz in a single radio. So what you see on the chart here is a cost index. And the cost per bit declines the more spectrum operators have available to stick in a single radio. If you ask me, sometimes people ask me, what's the killer application for 5G? The killer application for 5G is to reduce the cost per bit. You have experienced it all yourself. You're not paying more for your mobile bills. They roughly remain the same, but the amount of data you get keeps increasing. So it's about the economics, it's about affordability, and I think we saw that also in previous presentations. So the other important aspect, that it's not just about assigning 200 megahertz per operator, but it's about assigning it at full power, full mobile power. Why is that so? Because if what you see on the chart is the number of cell sites you need relative to cell sites that are already there, namely the 3.5 gigahertz cell site. If you have full power, you can simply pop the 6 gigahertz radius on the existing cell sites, and that of course reduces costs enormously. That gives you outdoor as well as indoor coverage. So it is very important to have that 200 megahertz at full power. I already mentioned the regional dependence on mobile as the main connectivity source. So using mobile is, of course, as we can see here from this chart, this is from the GSMA, the primary means by which people access the internet. And so being able to do that and making it more affordable is very important. We saw the excellent presentation from Natalia from the ITU, which showed that in terms of how much people need to spend, so the affordability for mobile is much better than for fixed. And this is why this is so important to strengthen the mobile proposition, because it is, of course, when you look at 5G mobile, although it's called mobile, it's called IMT 2020 5G, and fixed wireless access is one of the use cases for 5G. So using the same infrastructure and the same spectrum, both for mobile and fixed. And this is why it's so efficient and much cheaper for mobile, for users. Now, are we ready? Absolutely. The development for the infrastructure, for the user equipment is racing ahead. Standardization and so on, that has already happened. And I think there will be a presentation later on some of the technical aspects of this. But commercial CPEs are already appearing, and smartphones with the band are expected at around 2027. So therefore, it is a good idea for CIS countries to assign the spectrum now, so we'll be ready before 2030 for operators to deploy, when there will be a healthy ecosystem for these bands. There have been also some ideas that the mobile or IMT could somehow coexist with Wi-Fi in the band. In fact, that is not possible. So the implementation of some sort detect and forget, that Wi-Fi detects, hey, there's mobile being used and I've listened and therefore I won't talk. This doesn't really work from a practical aspect. Some people have suggested that they use the 6 gigahertz for mobile outdoor and for Wi-Fi indoor. But again, this doesn't really work because you need full power for the 6 gigahertz band, or otherwise you don't really get the economic benefit, and therefore you do not get the affordability benefit out of the 6 gigahertz band if it's not assigned in full power. So as regards licensing versus non-licensing, one of the key issues is also licensing does exactly what it says on the box. If you license something, the state retains control. For example, you can set coverage obligations, whereas if you say, fine, I assign it to unlicensed, you don't know what's happening. You're losing control. It may or may not be deployed. And also, if somebody sets up a, let's say, 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi hotspot somewhere, only the people they authorized can use it, whereas if it's being used for mobile, all mobile users can use it. So if you think about it, one of the key principles of efficient spectrum use is how many people can use it. And so assigning spectrum for mobile will give a much, much wider use. Now, there's also been a suggestion that you might, in the interim, prior to the 6 gigahertz band being really useful for mobile around about 2030, that it could be used for something else. But again, this is very, very inefficient. This timescale is simply too short, and there is no real ecosystem. Do some of you remember WiMAX? That, of course, died a death, didn't it? Because there were simply too few users, there were no economies of scale, and so on, and it disappeared. The applications that were run through WiMAX are now run either through fixed or probably to 4G or 5G FWA. So it would be a highly inefficient use of spectrum. And there are a few other issues which you can read through. You have to coordinate and so on. It's just really a nightmare. It simply doesn't work. It would be a big, big waste of money. So let's not repeat the WiMAX mistake. That's, if you will, how I would phrase it. And of course, the benefit of 5G and also 6G is that you have one system which serves multiple needs. It serves enhanced mobile broadband, it serves machine type communications, and of course, most importantly, it serves fixed wireless access. And fixed wireless access, 5G FWA, has been the fastest growing broadband access technology in the world. And I think this is particularly important in CIS countries. In many CIS countries, as I mentioned already, affordability is absolutely key. And if consumers invest in something, they're not going to have, a smartphone and a laptop and a tablet. For many, investing in a smartphone is a huge investment decision. And of course, they can use this to access the internet directly via 5G and later 6G mobile networks. Now, where are we with 6G? The introduction of 6G, of course, will require new midbands, and it's already well underway. Specifications or standardization is happening and so on, and we expect the first 6G launches or roundabout 2030. But of course, prior to that, the 6 gigahertz will already be used for 5G advanced and 5G standalone in many, many countries. So I'd say there's a real opportunity for CIS countries not to repeat what happened with 5G, because let's face it, this region was rather late with 5G. And why was that? Because the spectrum wasn't available. So making the spectrum available, the 6 gigahertz spectrum, the 200 megahertz per operators, would deliver the opportunity for the CIS countries, if you will, to leapfrog and catch up with the rest of the world. You saw the league tables, and you also see, for example, Kazakhstan steadily moving up the league table. These countries could be pretty close to the top of the league table if they followed these recommendations here. So identify the upper 6 gigahertz band for IMT in the national table of frequency allocation. So that's a message for the administrations, of course, and do so at full power. And this is important, spectrum licenses should be service neutral, so it can be used for FWA and mobile. By the way, that's pretty much standard in most countries around the world. And allocate a contiguous 200 megahertz per operator so they can deploy cheaply in the whole band, which delivers the greatest spectral efficiency, and do so by 2030. And of course, do not muddy the water by allowing inter-HIM Wi-Fi use in that band. And by the way, if some of the administrations are listening remotely to this conference, or some of you are here and you wanted a more in-depth presentation one-to-one to your team via Microsoft Teams, I'd be happy to do that. So there are plenty of other reports which you can download from the Coliago website, all free of charge, dealing with mobile topics, regulation, economics, and so on. Please feel free to do that. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. One brief question, if I may. You said that the number of base stations in 6 gig band could be equal to the number of base stations in 3.5 gigahertz band. But how could it be? Some of us do recall from the school physics course that the frequency is inversely proportional to the wavelength. That means that the higher frequency is, the shorter is the wavelength. That immediately means that we have to use more base stations to cover the same territory in a higher bands.
That is correct. However, the 3.5 gigahertz band is not deployed for coverage, it's deployed for capacity. So you have a relatively dense grid in an urban area, which is almost contiguous coverage. And so if you can pop the 6 gigahertz radius onto the same site, you get the same benefit. But to get the benefit, you need the full power. So you cannot accept the suggestion that it's at low power, because of low power, you're running exactly in the problem you mentioned, it shrinks the cell size. And so hence for the economics, it's very important. Of course, you'll never have nationwide coverage, and it's not necessary because in the middle of nowhere, there's no traffic. The capacity of the 700, 900, 18 megahertz band is quite sufficient where traffic densities are low, but it's in the cities where you have the problem, and there these sites are very close together.
Got it. Thank you very much. Леонид, благодарим докладчика.
So let us give a big hand to the speaker, and I believe that you will be able to ask your questions to Stefan during informal discussion, because his presentation was really very interesting. And I would like to turn the floor to Viktor Strelets, who is the chairman of the Research Commission number 4, Radio Communication Bureau, and he will be talking about the equal use of satellite orbits in the condition of very intensive deployment of satellites in geostationary orbits. Please, you are welcome. Thank you very much, Leonid Grigorievich, for the opportunity to speak. Well, you know, now we are going to jump from the ground to the sky, to the space, and I will try to be brief.
Коллеги, помогите, да, здесь. Спасибо большое.
The space industry last year demonstrated a very good growth, but probably the most interesting question is that it was not the money which was predetermining the further development. However, that role was ascribed to technological solutions, and the main trends for satellite industry in 2025 have been identified. Geopolicy is now taking more priority because, of course, everybody realizes that the space is really very important for governments, very much more than before. And at the times of D2D, probably we will be talking about this trend because it is one of the strongest. And the third tendency is the introduction of or integration of the satellites into the telecommunication network. And this is what we have to pay very close attention to, because right now 5 million of antennas are used only by Starlink, and many people are using this very comfortable equipment now because such satellite dishes are cost only 50 euros, and very often if you sign a contract with Elon Musk for 12 months, Starlink will provide it to the end user free of charge. And when D2D market will develop, we hope that space technologies will be used by a growing number of users. The telecommunication on the move, on the go, is taking the leading stance among the suppliers of new flat antennas, and therefore, if the launch of the satellites and the price associated with it will decrease, of course, it will stimulate this tendency. But there is another tendency. It is necessary to manage the supply chain. Multi-orbital usage will also acquire more importance. The growth of the satellites is doubling every year starting 2015. And right now there are about 11,000 active satellites in the space. It goes without saying that the outer space is more and more loaded. Now you see the color picture on the left, which is demonstrating how many various objects of different size are available on the orbit, and among them, the lowest number is 2,200 objects that are providing services in the territory of the Earth. And there is also space trash, which depends on the orbit, and they can be available for several hours on several dozens of kilometers, and on during hundreds of years on the geostationary orbit. And we are using, of course, from 350 to 2,000 kilometers, and you see that the variance is between several years to several hundreds years. Here is the routine of Starlink, and the proceeds of Starlink have already amounted to about 12 billion US, and for the first ever time, the revenue from space internet have exceeded the satellite launches revenues. SpaceX is now shifting from the deployment of the infrastructure to the role of the operator in various markets, and it is using its dominant prevalence in the satellite launches, and about 7,300 or 7,400 satellites are turning around in the orbits. The clientele is growing, very rapidly growing, and more than 100 countries are providing already these services, and this tendency keeps growing. 1 year ago, in 2000, on the 23rd of May last year, we've been watching a presentation of making a phone call, D2D phone call, and at that time it was Lev Grigorievich. It was a very interesting event. But today we already see that the D2D time is already happening, and GSO systems are also demonstrating a similar service. 2 weeks ago, I was in Shanghai at the work group meeting, and our colleagues from Shanghai were demonstrating a smartphone which is working through GSO, and of course it was a kind of fantastic solution. Of course, there is a short delay in the signal. However, it's a business service, and it costs about 100 yuan, which is about 1,000 rubles per month. And for the voice traffic and for SMS, and you will always be available at any destination. And of course, ITU is keeping an eye on all the trends and tendencies that are taking place, but the decisions that we are taking are lagging behind a little bit, because, you know, there was 4A and 4C work groups which are in charge of all the broad range of issues, starting from authorization and use of GSO and PSS, and all the way to D2D, which is number 1.13, and the majority of the issues are dedicated to satellite issues. What are the main issues that we have on our agenda today? This is the interdependence and the interaction of GSO with NGSO, NGSO, and NGSO, and NGSO with ground services, terrestrial services. And one of the main conditions or critical compatibility criteria, the EPPM compatibility. This is the protection of the ground stations and the satellites, and therefore this year we will have to revisit all those threshold values, but without taking any regulatory decisions. What will these changes in the threshold values give us. There was published a press release in Romania. We have already tested successfully the lifting of such thresholds. The internet bitrate is between 1 to 2 gigabits per second, and the movies in HD are downloaded during 20 seconds, and the streaming as well as online training and education, video calls and remote work without any breaks. So actually, this is what Starlink is actually aspiring after. And of course, we are discussing it in the framework of 4A work group. And moreover, we are discussing it on other platforms as well. And in the United States of America, the majority of the operators are categorically against it, against such changes. And moreover, during the last meeting of the of 4A working group, different ideas were presented, but we unfortunately did not have enough time to discuss it. And the chairman of the working group, all the pictures are almost authentic, and the recent 4A working group and some other decisions with regard to the future PPM is actually demonstrating that we are in the confrontation step, because the strongest does not want to listen to other parties, stakeholders. And of course, we are trying to revisit the approaches, and the chairman of the committee will work out the new rules and will present them during the upcoming meeting, so that the efficiency of our operations will be improved. What kind of decisions of the American regulator that has already been taken, and which are actually going against the rules of ITU?
On April 20, FCC voted for the redistribution of the satellite spectrum. The ITU right now is not discussing this issue with the regulators. The United States are making their own decision. They found some country, Romania, where they tried to apply these limits. Then the permission to use D2D before the ITU conference decision of 2027, the decision has been made that the applications for satellite networks will be reviewed for the frequencies distributed by the ITU. I'm not saying whether this is good or bad, but this is simply an indication that the progress in technologies cannot be stopped. And if we cannot agree internationally at the national level, the decision should be made, and then the satellite technologies are global in nature. Well, first of all, this is related to development of recommendations for the satellite launches, the effective methods for the spectrum or frequencies. Basically, trying to ensure this pace stability or sustainability. There has been that wanted to protect the space orbits. They're trying to protect these orbits, and all of the satellites must descend to the lower boreal orbit. That's why they have a limited, and they can survive for hundreds of years. So the orbit must be preserved pristine for the use for the future applications. Also would like to speak about the use of the ground stations. This is really important. There has been some bad precedent The Starlinks are being used in the Islamic Republic of Iran. The Iran applied to the regulatory committee. Regulatory committee made a decision that all of the practical steps must be made to exclude the zone from the service area by Starlink. But to the right, you can see that FCC tried to address its peer regulators across the world that satellites cannot deactivate their signals when passing over unfriendly countries. So this phone, as soon as they start using D2D technology, the question of connecting or disconnecting, these will become a matter of the past. How to do it, why to do it with this new situation. So there is this challenge for us. The research committee for this, these are 3 working groups. These are all of us, people who are developing proposals to protect our interests. We're developing criteria and methods and subsequently trying to protect them. The next conference is going to be 2027. The participation in the working groups is open. At the most recent meeting in Shanghai, we had people, 400 people from each group. So 800 people participate in the work group. Well, working group number 4A is slightly smaller. We are developing regulations for interfaces of the satellite component IMT 2025G. Also developed the perspective for the development of recommendations for IMT 2030. This probably ends my presentation. Thank you. I cannot help myself but would like to ask these questions by the most recent FCC decision. If the decision is in discrepancy with the ITU decision, are there any specific tools at the ITU level to counteract against such decisions, or are there any superior authorities to resolve? The international law is based on mutual respect to each other. And if someone signs some rules, they must comply. If they fail to comply, then, of course, every administration in its territory, they might require Starlink or some other satellite system to comply with the limits. But how can you implement this practically? It's a difficult situation. And every national administration is going to choose. At the next session, we're going to be talking about developing our own infrastructure or relying on the Starlink services. Romanians say super speed, super coverage. Why do we need to limit this? But on the other hand, when the regulators from the US make a decision to review the limits, then we must understand that this regulator has access in Intelsat operators. They have about 100 geostationary satellites. These regulators, can they make a decision to kill this constellation or kill some other service? Probably not. I think this regulator is going to be balanced, to use the balanced approach to things, and they must simply say to ITU, if you don't want to do this, we'll do it ourselves. We'll do it for us, and those who want to be with us will join us. You can continue your discussions, you can continue arguing about this, you can continue blocking things. Thank you. Colleagues, some time for a very brief question. Okay, let's thank Victor. Thank you very much. Now I would like to invite to the stage Deputy Chairman of the National Center of Satellite Communication, mostly was known as Kassat Vasily Leonov, who's going to briefly tell us about the telecom satellites in Kazakhstan, about the current needs. The lunch is near, so I'll be very brief. Well, it's a coffee break. Okay, it's all clear. I'd like to tell you about different things, but let us be quick. I'd like to say that the satellite com operators, they participate participate in this conference and the convergence of different types of comms, because when satellite telecom operators, when they face the task to provide telecom service to some remote region, all of the technologies become involved. Fixed comms, wireless comms, it's all interesting. So our institution, National Center of Satellite Communication, is trying to deliver all kinds of objectives like that. We are the operators of our satellite system of Kazakhstan. The system is called KazSat. It consists of two geostationary satellites, KazSat-2 and KazSat-3, and the infrastructure, two centers of the satellite communications located in the city of Akol and near the village of Kakterek, north and south of this country. These satellites, one of them KazSat-2, with its shelf life till the end of 2026, KazSat-3 till the end of 2029. Previously, someone raised this question with Deputy Chairman of the Telecoms Committee about the future of our satellite constellation. Well, let me respond to this question. KazSat-2 is no longer going to be expanded. KazSat-3 will be extended, and by the end of 2029, we are planning to replace this satellite. And we're going to update our satellite comm systems with this new satellite. Basically, right now, some activities are underway. In the foreseeable future, we'll be announcing a tender. We'll invite bids. Now we are at the final stages of forming the budget for this new satellite. The satellite will be operating in the same frequency band KazSat-3 with the better power outputs. So our primary objective is to ensure and preserve our own satellite communication system, the Republic of Kazakhstan, provide some services with the help of it. And just like I told you, since the second satellite, KazSat-2, by the end of the next year, will complete its operations, given all of the current trends that we can see, specifically for the needs of geostationary telecommunications and Ku-band. We will basically move all of the networks located on this KazSat-2 to KazSat-3. Given the fact that right now there is some deficit at KazSat-2, it's got lots of clients who are using the capabilities of the satellite. We believe that the network migration will be in the format of direct migration using the capabilities of KazSat-3. And also with the use of infrastructure of our entity, this specific hub that we acquired for these very purposes, for the network migration, to be able to better use the capacity, frequencies, and we offer our clients to use these capabilities. And briefly, I'd like to tell you about our ongoing projects. These projects also cater to some of the government's tasks. I specifically mentioned the 176 rural residential areas are provided with the internet access, Wi-Fi access using the CASSAT Telecom. All of the other rural residential areas which required the same approach, and with a population of less than 250 people, we'll be closing with the OneWeb technologies. This is the only operator that has a connection point in the Republic of Kazakhstan. We're communicating with them very closely since their connection point is located at the site of our space communication Kokterek. We will be providing technical support to this station. Also would like to say that right now, jointly with OneWeb, we are working through the issue jointly with the European Commission. The European Commission is allocating certain funds and grant facilities for the objectives of connecting various remote areas and social facilities to the internet. And we are basically developing the same project to connect some of the new remote sites, rural sites, social facilities via the OneWeb technology. Also do a pilot on Starlink, connecting educational institutions, specifically schools, not just connecting, but this technology is being tried to increase the overall throughput, to provide the better internet access for those who use ADSL or fiber optics, but with the low throughput. So basically, previously there is the question about the future of this project. We are waiting for this decision because we act as the main contractor, but we are being asked about our opinion about the regulatory settlement of the Starlink technology in Kazakhstan. I understand that this is new technology, good performance, good KPIs. They are not the only ones out there, in my opinion. Everyone must comply with the specific sets of requirements, since we have a precedent that a particular operator on stationary systems has entered into this country complying with the rules, the others should follow. Here they mentioned the Chinese operators, Shanghai-based sale. This is the Chinese response to Starlink. They will be having a similar system, and right now we're working with them possibility of placing their portal station using our facility, and they have an intention to start the construction this year. And by the second half of the next year, they'll start providing their services in Kazakhstan. Also would like to say that also by the Russian Federation, some inquiries to participate come from non-geostationary systems Bureau 1440. We're also working with them. The similar interaction, the similar type of cooperation. Also would like to know that apart from classical satellite services, satellite telecom service, we're developing technologically connected services at our satellite communication center, Kokterek. Some of these technologies have been implemented. We have our own data center we accommodate the equipment by our operators. Those who wants to basically have some data services and computing power. So I've tried to be very brief. I'll be happy to take any questions. A couple of questions about space sale. All of the parties basically agreed, and there is a clear-cut schedule for the arrival of this company to Kazakhstan. Well, we are having some very intense negotiations, not just for the satellite communication or internet. There is a group of companies. They have the manufacturers of the satellite systems. They all made us an offer on Cassat 3 in the part of placing their portal station in Kazakhstan. We already signed the MOU with them. And some cooperation is progressing, so right now we are discussing the actual contract. What's your policy about, well, accessing global satellite operators to the local market? Would you like to let in everyone who wants? Of course, this should be a question to the regulator. Of course, we take part in this process, take part in this discussion.
But here our stance, is fully compliant with the stance of the state body, because we are a state-owned company which belongs by 100% to the government. But of course, we cannot close our eyes to breakthrough technologies, progressive technologies, because no one is going to deny the benefits of NGSO, because sometimes when you can simply take a terminal, grab the terminal, put it into your knapsack, and you will be able to use internet in the middle of nowhere. But at the same time, there are some government policy with regard to the access to information, to data. You will agree with me that we cannot let any information without any control in our country. And when we launched the first 10,000 schools were connected through Starlink, well, you know, we had in that traffic whatever. I mean, French commercials, social ads from Hungary, and all the way up to, you know, sex content. And definitely we try to use various limitations and filtering to control the traffic, because the traffic should be controlled. It goes without saying, and the government should have and already has some certain requirements to the content, taking into consideration the advantages of the new technologies. It is necessary to work out optimal requirements, which in the course of time cannot stay intact. They will have to be revisited with time. And nevertheless, I do practice and adhere to universal approach to everything. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Vasily. And with this, the marathon of our plenary session is over. Let's have a coffee break, and in 20 minutes, please let us get back here and resume our work, and enjoy your coffee and tea break. And thank you very much.
Уважаемые участники, мы продолжаем трансляцию конференции Telecom Eurasia. И сейчас вы видите за нашими спинами стенд компании Nauman, который является партнером нашего мероприятия. Рядом со мной Павел, который подробнее расскажет об услугах компании в том числе и для телеком-компаний. Прошу.
Коллеги, добрый день. Очень приятно быть на вашем мероприятии. Мероприятие отличное. Мы сегодня приехали поделиться опытом с вами. Мой коллега сегодня будет рассказывать про кейс, который производился для заказчика из Казахстана. Но сама линейка продуктов у Наумана очень широкая и включает разные продукты, которые идут в помощь IT-подразделениям. В целом экосистема Наумана рассчитана на поддержку IT-инфраструктуры. В частности, есть решения, которые позволяют проводить дискаверинг и мониторинг. Есть решения зонтичного мониторинга, которые собирают и консолидируют на себя различные данные из различных систем мониторинга и позволяют отслеживать уровень сервиса и отслеживать уровень инфраструктуры. Сейчас это современный тренд, и эти задачи как раз мы решаем. В том числе есть интересный продукт, который направлен на детальный учет ИКТ и инфраструктуры, аналог систем NRI и Inventory. По данным решениям у нас большой опыт как с точки зрения экспертизы, так с точки зрения и реализованных проектов, в том числе по отрасли телеком. Поэтому, если кому-то будет более интересно, мы на стенде. Пожалуйста, подходите, детальнее про это расскажем. Спасибо.
Спасибо, Павел. Спасибо. Мы переходим к следующему стенду, который хотим вам продемонстрировать. Этот стенд демонстрирует то, что наша конференция является международной. За нашими спинами вы можете наблюдать стенд компании MTEL, индийского поставщика магистральных сетей, проводов и оборудования. Рядом со мной господин Синг, который подробнее вам расскажет об тех оборудованиях и тех системах, которые они предоставляют для рынка. Прошу, Синг.
Hi, it's been pretty enlightening to be here in Almaty for this event. Very well organized, and it's been we have seen that how fiber optic connectivity projects are being talked about in Kazakhstan now, and that's where we as a company come into picture. We give solutions for better connectivity, future-proof connectivity, and quick connectivity throughout the world. We connect people. That's what we try to do in a better way, with better network solutions. So I'm from MTEL. I'm responsible for sales for the company. I'm director of sales, and we are showcasing our solutions today, which are blown fiber solutions. Microducts, blown fiber solutions and all. So I'm sure with our solutions we can add value to the plans of different telecom operators here in Kazakhstan, and we are looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Как вы видите, за нашими спинами продолжается кофе-брейк, а мы переходим к следующему стенду, который хотим вам продемонстрировать. И это стенд компании Optech, наших партнеров, нашего международного мероприятия. И компания Optech является поставщиком и интегратором для не только телекоммуникационных компаний, но и энергетических и промышленных. И рядом со мной Алдияр, который подробнее расскажет об услугах компании. Прошу.
Спасибо. Я кратко расскажу о нашей компании. Мы являемся официальным дистрибьютором ведущих мировых производителей в телеком-отрасли, в энергетике, нефти, газ, промышленная автоматизация. Наши основные партнеры – это японские компании, производители сварочных аппаратов, оптических рефлектометров, транспортные анализаторы сетей для тестирования Ethernet, сетей 10G, 100G, радиочастотные анализаторы спектра для нахождения помех, интерференции, для просмотра эфира в канале. Все, что вы видите на этом стенде, это все необходимые приборы и инструменты для монтажа, обслуживания и строительства оптической линии связи и радиочастотной связи. Сетей связи. В целом, все оптические рефлектометры, которые здесь есть, они внесены в реестр ГСИРК. Это значит, что наша компания предоставляет не только сам аппарат, но и оборудование с сертификатом на ежегодную поверку. Все сварочные аппараты Sumitomo Electric, они готовы продажи на складе, в наличии у нас в Алматы. У нас есть собственный центр. Это значит то, что мы не только являемся дистрибьюторами, но и сервис-провайдером, который предоставляет услуги по техническому обслуживанию всех наших оборудований. В целом так. Спасибо.
Спасибо, Алдияр. Спасибо, уважаемые зрители. Мы продолжаем наш кофе-брейк. Подключайтесь через 15 минут. Мы продолжим наши интереснейшие сессии.
Бизнес трансформируется. Раньше в центре всех процессов был клиент. Теперь компаниям важно учитывать потребности и интересы человека в каждой из его ролей – клиента, партнера и сотрудника. Так выглядит принцип человекоцентричности. В компании Naumann мы создаем технологии для человека-клиента, у которого есть масштабные задачи цифровизации, для человека-партнера, которому нужны инновационные продукты для развития на IT-рынке, для человека-сотрудника, который помогает клиентам внедрять и поддерживать IT-решения. Мы понимаем мотивацию каждого из участников процесса и создаем комфортную IT-среду, которая помогает делать бизнес эффективным, а значит прибыльным. Naumann – эксперт в цифровой трансформации для бизнеса и государства. С нашими решениями взаимодействуют более 200 миллионов человек. Мы автоматизируем управление IT-сервисами. Создаем лоу-код платформы для самостоятельного запуска бизнес-приложений. Разрабатываем инструменты для клиентского сервиса с использованием искусственного интеллекта. Реализуем масштабные проекты в области заказной разработки. Мы помогаем компаниям выстроить человекоцентричную траекторию изменений, чтобы оставаться на шаг впереди для клиента, партнера и сотрудника. Naumann – технологии будущего для человека настоящего.